Almost 1.5 million Canadians play pickleball at least once a week. Over 36 million pickleballers in the United States. Pickleball participation has grown over 150% in the last 3 years. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. Each week on this podcast, a different topic, story, or discussion from our lives.
Season 9, Chapter 10.
Pickleball.
I have been aware of pickleball for many years. I've yet to play. It's number 2 on my bucket list. Number 1 is get a bucket. I don't need stats to tell me that pickleball has skyrocketed in popularity. I know it's popular because it's beginning to appear as an activity in national television commercials. Big television advertisers generally depict people in 3 main ways. 1, they are suffering from something, bad back, bad hair, bad breath, and this particular product will cure you, unless it's an actual medicine that may cure you, because then they have to add at least 20 seconds of the different ways it can also kill you. Number 1, sufferers. Number 2, people who look kind of like you and me, but they are having a much better life than you and me. Living a better life. These are people that advertisers feel you aspire to be. And wow, just when you thought that was impossible, along comes their product or service that can kick you up a notch, get you to that next level of happy. And number 3 category of people, again, these are generalizations, is the depiction of normal people doing everyday things we all do. The only difference is their life is enhanced by the advertiser's product or service. Oh, look, there's a guy having fun at a monster truck show. Why? Because, people go to monster truck shows. There's some folks at a summer carnival. They're in a coffee shop. They're in the park. Look how normal they are, just like you and me. And if they're doing all this because of their laundry soap or their new Buick, I should too. Advertisers using the everyman tactic are always on the lookout for what is already popular. What are the people up to? And how can we depict that and sneak it into our pitch? This is where pickleball comes in. I said to myself, pickleball must be getting really popular because it's appearing in ads. One of the biggest is a mammoth American cellular phone service, and they use Ted Danson as their pitchman. Everyone else in the commercials is just a regular average citizen, like you and me. But along comes Ted Danson to save the day and help us save on cellular service. No coincidence, by the way, the company used Ted Danson as opposed to, say, a Nicki Minaj or a Shawn Mendes. Because in these commercials, all the normal people are older, like Ted Danson. You know what the older people want in cellular service. They want a phone, and they'd like to pay less. If Nicki Minaj advertised a phone service, her target audience, price is no issue. Younger demographics pay whatever it takes. All they want is the most apps, widgets, and games on the coolest phone. But the people who travel at Ted Danson's speed, savings please. And Ted Danson is a good spokesperson. He's famous, white-haired, he's friendly. And it's a good gig for Ted, huh? I guess Ted got tired of being in every TV show, so he decided I got to be on the commercials as well. Since Cheers, how many TV shows Ted Danson has been starring in or co-starring in? 9. Not to mention guest starring in movies. I think it's great. Good for you, Ted. I love him. He's talented and, he has a great sense of humor about himself. So there's Ted at the mall. There's Ted in your backyard just showing up to advise you to a better cellular mobile service. But now, Ted Danson is at a pickleball court. Why? Well, because pickleball is popular. And for the most part, but not exclusively, older people are playing pickleball. In these other phone ads, people are getting pitched for a more expensive service. While they're at the mall, Ted shows up to save the day. The guy in his backyard is getting bad cell connections. Ted shows up. Why he's at the pickleball court is unclear. Maybe it's just me, but I'm missing the storyline of why he shows up. Is it because if you're on this cell service, you'll be able to stay in touch with your pickleball friends? You can schedule games and meet up? No, I don't know. You'll save money to buy a better pickleball paddle, nicer shorts. Anyhow, somehow the older people are playing pickleball while Ted Danson looks on. And the cellular service expects sales to go up based on this ad. Note also that in the commercial, Ted Danson does not play pickleball. Not actually in the ad. He's merely a spectator. I don't know. Maybe he's waiting to play the winner. The other big pickleball ad now is actually for a sports drink. And the two main characters in this ad are considerably younger. One is the local pickleball champion. The other is an average Joe. How could the average Joe ever take on the champ? He's got a superior sports drink. It's got more energy and hydration, electrolytes and flavonoids and oxygens and I don't know, whatever. Take that, pickleball champ. You've been dethroned by Sports Drink Man. My favorite product using pickleball to increase sales. It's the best, or maybe the worst, I don't know, depending. Skechers, the shoe manufacturer. They actually have vigorously marketed a pickleball shoe, the official shoe of every pickleball league. They actually say that. The Pickleball by Skechers. The custom rubber sole is by Goodyear with a specialized pickleball design for increased side-to-side stability and agility. And they feature shock-absorbing foam. That's exactly what they say about the pickleball shoe. The foam that's shock-absorbing. Isn't it foam? Isn't it supposed to absorb shock? What other kind of foam is there? The shock-inducing foam? What a shoe! You gotta have that to play pickleball, apparently. Even though the features are shockingly similar to every other court shoe. Couldn't I just play pickleball in tennis shoes? Oh, no, don't you dare. How about badminton sneakers? No, you gotta have the pickleball shoe from Skechers. Wow, Nike. You may be missing the ball on this one. The pickleball. There's also an ad for Metamucil, a commercial where people are playing pickleball. I'm not sure if it's the Metamucil that makes me a better pickleball player, or the combination of pickleball and Metamucil that keeps me vibrant and healthy. Again, the messaging there, not clear. At least an athletic shoe and a sports drink using pickleball to help sales, that makes some sense. But a cellular phone service or adding a fiber supplement to my day somehow involving pickleball? Well, we'll see. I'll wait for a medical journal report on that before deciding. But hey, it's media. It's advertising. They'll do whatever it takes. First, there was pickleball. Then people started to play pickleball. Then a few more. Then leagues formed, and then associations and championships, and national leagues and professionals and national championships. You can find dozens of YouTube videos on how to improve your game. And here we are. Pickleball is huge. The game of pickleball. And if you're not also watching this on my YouTube channel, pickleball is one word. Like football, baseball, basketball, one word, pickleball. The game is almost 60 years old. That is a mere baby in the annals of sports. Pickleball was born in 1965 on Bainbridge Island near Seattle, Washington. And it's a great story. And here's 3 names you need to know. Joe Pritchard, Bill Bell, and Barney McCallum. Bainbridge Island is where upper middle class Seattleites, and yes, that is what you call people from Seattle, Seattleites. Those Seattleites who could afford it had cottages on Bainbridge Island, cottages set up for summer, weekends, and vacations. Joe, Bill, Barney, a couple others and other families would be up there every weekend and every vacation. They were all cottage neighbors on a beach on a quiet little alcove on Bainbridge Island. One day, Joe and Bill come back from golfing, and the kids were just hanging around, bored. I'm bored. There's nothing to do. So Joe and Bill were the kind of dads who would not allow bored kids. They took them to the back of Joe's place to an old badminton court. They found some old ping pong paddles in the garage and a hollow plastic baseball, and they said to the kids, "Hey, go bat the ball around on the badminton court. Start a game." "Well, what game?" "I don't know, bat the ball." As you probably know, badminton nets are set up pretty high, but some of the parts were missing, so they just strung the net out on the ground. It ended up being about 3 feet high. And you know what? The kids had fun. They weren't bored. But you know, the dads were pretty competitive, so they wanted to play. And they loved it. Joe and Bill invited Barney over. He immediately got hooked. They played every day. Some of the other neighbors they were tight with also got invited. Wives, kids, extended family, friends, everybody played. They loved this yet unnamed game. They toyed with different scoring methods based on ping pong, on badminton, on tennis. They tried them all. The ping pong paddles were breaking, so Barney, who had a bandsaw, got some plywood and fashioned a slightly larger paddle. It was also a little more rectangular with a longer handle. And bam! They had new paddles. They invented rules along the way on an as-needed basis. And again, they all played as much as they could. As legend has it, Joe Pritchard had a playful little dog named Pickles. Pickles was always around when they were playing this paddle game. Used to love to chase the ball, grabbed it when it went out of bounds. And that was how the game was named, after the dog, Pickleball. And it was 2 words at first. So we're in 1965, and after Labor Day, the Bainbridge Island cottage life pretty much shuts down. And all the families were back in Seattle. Barney's kids particularly missed playing the game, but they realized that the width of a badminton court was about 20 feet, and it's the average width of a suburban street. So they'd set up a net and play on the street. Neighbors watched and asked if they could play too. One neighbor actually built a court in his backyard. So Barney, the kids, and others had a place to play without always having to yell, "Car!" Barney started to get calls. "Hey, can you make me some paddles? I'll pay you." So he did. Another neighborhood player was a higher up at Seattle University. He started a regular pickleball night on campus. Remember Joe, who started this thing when his kids were bored at the cottage? He was also a U.S. congressman. So when he'd have a campaign event or a political rally, at the end he would say, "Okay, now we're all going to play pickleball." "What?" And he'd quickly explain the rules and hand out some paddles, and they'd play pickleball at these rallies. The game was starting to move out of Seattle. Barney was getting more and more calls to make paddles. And by the way, the original paddle that he fashioned, yeah, there's improved construction and materials, but it's pretty much the same one that he just made up all those years ago. So yet another neighborhood player was head of the Times Publishing Company. So he called the New York Times and said, "We got a game we're playing out here in Seattle. You should send out a reporter for a fun story." Reporter shows up. Barney invites him over to play. They write an article in the New York Times. Now most of America has heard about pickleball. At this point, we're in the early 1970s. Barney gets another call. "Hey, could you make an actual pickleball starter kit for under $30? "Sure," said Barney. And for $29.50, Anyone in America could write in, and for $29.50 you got a badminton net, 4 paddles, 4 balls, your starter kit. Within days, they got dozens and dozens and dozens of requests. So Joe, Bill, and Barney said, I think we have to have a company. Because right now, we're just sending stuff out in plain packaging and we're keeping our money in a cigar box. So they started the company, Pickleball Inc. Joe, Bill, Barney all wrote checks to invest in their new business. Although Barney and his son pretty much ran the day-to-day. They improved the paddles, they got some professional packaging done, and more kits went out. Schools became interested in the game as an easy and simple way to have phys ed. So Pickleball Inc. started to travel to schools to promote the game. Soon, school boards from out of state were asking for demonstrations. So Pickleball Inc. traveled from state to state, and before you knew it, a national game was born, raised, and well on its way. I'm not sure if I can explain the amazing resurgence just in the last few years, but it's good exercise. It's not too strenuous or difficult to play unless, your opponent is a champion with a better sports drink. It's relatively inexpensive, it's fun, and can be played indoors or out. The pickleball court size is 44 by 20 feet. And yes, that is the size of a badminton court. It's also approximately half the size of a tennis court, at least lengthwise. So really, in the space of a tennis court, and most of our tennis courts are largely abandoned these days, and they're grown over and under-maintained, in that space you can actually have 2 pickleball courts. They ended up with a fixed height for the net of 36 inches, because in the old days, that first net behind the cottage was always sagging. So Joe made sure the net was at the right height, and he measured it up to his hip, which was 36 inches. Each game, singles or doubles, first one to 11, and you got to win by 2. The serve, which has to be underhand, has to bounce once on the opponent's side and then bounce once back on the server side before you can start to volley or hit it in the air. On each side of the net is a no volley zone. It's the line on a badminton court for short serve zone. On a pickleball court, it's the no volley zone. It's a few feet back of the net, and it's called the kitchen. That was another rule they invented back in the day because they had a neighbor who was like 6'5", and he would just walk up to the net and spike it. So they said, well, that's no good. No volleying in the no volley zone. The kitchen. Like with many games, only the serving team or player can score the point. If the opponent scores on the server, that means they lose serve, then you serve, and then you can start scoring points. First one to 11, win by 2. There's a few more rules and nuances, but that's the gist of it. That's the gist of pickleball. And that's how pickleball came to be pickleball. And I love this story because it's organic. Nobody started out to invent a game or to make a fortune. They just loved to play a game they mostly made up. It grew pretty much on its own. And it kept growing because everybody just loved to play. Most of the kids who played back then on Bainbridge Island are still around to reminisce of how this got started. Barney McCallum just passed away in 2019 at age 93. Still amazed at how this little cottage game had grown to national championships with thousands of people playing and watching, and millions more playing recreationally. It's cool that he lived long enough to see all of that happen. When I was a kid, we used to play this game called 500. Basically just a baseball bat and a ball. It was a game we played if you didn't have enough kids to have an actual baseball game. One of our friends had a large front yard, so they got a croquet set. Eventually, someone got lawn darts. I don't know why some games really catch on and others not as much. Pickleball sure did, and it's lasted. And in case you're wondering, there is a movement underway to get pickleball in as a demonstration sport for the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. Probably not a bad idea, considering some of the lame games and disciplines they already have in the Olympics. I think I'd sooner watch pickleball than, trampoline or fencing. And since the Olympics is all about money, look at how many potential sponsors pickleball could attract to your events. Not to mention Ted Danson.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoric. LarryFedoric37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.